How's it going, everyone, and welcome to my backyard. I decided to bring the video outside today and to shoot from here because, quite frankly, it is so beautiful out here. It's springtime, it's warm, it's sunny. Hopefully the sound won't be too much of an issue. There is an occasional, truck or leaf blower or something like that. I just hate leaf blowers, just in general. So today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my thoughts about recent news and announcements from Canon regarding some of their full-frame mirrorless cameras for 2020. And I'm also going to be giving you some initial impressions of a new photo transfer, or rather file transfer service that Canon has recently unveiled. It's now live, it's out, you can sign up for it. It's a new service called Image.Canon, which I thought would be worth looking into because a couple of weeks ago I made a video about backing up raw photography in the cloud. All right, so let's begin by talking about the camera that everyone is talking about, and that is the EOS R5, a new flagship full-frame mirrorless camera that appears to be the true definition of a groundbreaking camera, and that's not just marketing spin. In case you haven't heard the specs, I'm just going to run them down really quickly. The EOS R5 is going to be able to shoot 8K video. I mean, when people were, posting rumors about this, I think everyone thought that was crazy. I thought it was crazy. I thought there was no way that Canon would be able to, leapfrog the competition in that dramatic a fashion, but it appears they are. It's going to be able to shoot 8K up to 30 frames per second, 4K and 1080 up to 120 frames per second, which will be awesome for recording slow motion footage. And by the way, all of those video modes will be uncropped. They're going to use the full width of the sensor, which is amazing for a Canon camera. Most Canon consumer cameras, the only uncropped video you can get is when recording in 1080. So that's a pretty big advancement. Then there's the fact that dual pixel autofocus, which is Canon's fantastic proprietary focusing system. Another thing that typically has only worked in 1080 in the past. That focusing system will now be available in both 4K and 8K, which again, just sounds amazing. And then there is the news about image stabilization. Image stabilization is going to be mechanical and in-body. It's not going to be digital. So by pairing an in-body mechanical image stabilization system along with the image stabilization that's built into the lens, we're looking at stabilization that's not only going to have a big impact, I think, with people's ability to shoot video handheld, but also with photography as well. It means, hopefully, that you're not always going to have to carry around a tripod in order to shoot at lower ISOs. Hopefully, it'll give you at least 4, 5, 6 additional stops that you can play with, so that shooting handheld becomes more of a possibility, and perhaps to be able to leave the tripod at home more than you're accustomed to doing. Now, in addition to the R5, there is a rumored second camera that is yet to be announced by Canon, but there's so much chatter going on online about it that it looks like it's probably going to be a sure thing. And that is a stripped-down version of the R5 known as the R6. Now, considering how advanced the R5 appears to be, a stripped-down version of that camera is still better than any consumer camera that Canon has out now, whether it be a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. So this new EOS R6, if it is to be believed, it won't have 8K, but I would imagine for like 99% of consumers out there, that's not a problem, because I don't think a lot of people are requesting 8K or shooting 8K for any real purpose. I mean, obviously they're building towards the future, but not having 8K in a camera, I think a lot of people will be totally fine with. The R6 will be able to shoot 4K up to 60 frames per second. Again, these are all rumors. 1080 up to 120 frames per second. So no 120 frames per second in 4K, but 60 frames per second would be sufficient enough, I think, for shooting slow motion. Like the R5, it'll shoot video uncropped using the full width of the sensor in both 1080 and 4K. Dual pixel autofocus in all modes, mechanical in-body image stabilization, just like the R5, which sounds to me like a camera that could be a more realistic video camera for a lot of people, because The ability to shoot 4K at 60 frames per second with in-body stabilization, I think would be more than enough for most people. Honestly, it would probably be more than enough for me. Would I like to have 4K at 120 frames per second? Sure, but 4K at 60 with in-body image stabilization, I think would be fantastic, and would be, and the fact that it would be hopefully lighter and cheaper than the R5 could make it an even more desirable video camera for certain people than the R5. So at the end of the day, let's say the R5 comes out and it's like, and it's an expensive full frame mirrorless camera because of those full frame specs. And let's say that it does have that somewhere around 45 megapixel sensor, which is what people are theorizing it's going to be because Canon hasn't actually announced the specs for the sensor yet. Let's say all those things happen. Is it going to be a good camera for photography? Yes, it is going to be a redesigned sensor, and yes, yet again, it sounds like it's going to have better autofocusing modes, which should appeal to like sports and wildlife photographers and people shooting portraits, especially with eye detection and all of that. The video capabilities sound amazing. But for still photography, with the camera on top of a tripod, there's very little information to get excited about right now because there's no information about the dynamic range of the sensor, whether there's going to be any change there, whether we'll have some additional latitude with this camera, or whether the sensor is going to improve image quality. My fear with the R5 is the fact that the camera will be incredibly exciting for video, but at the end of the day, when you boil everything down from a landscape photographer's perspective, it's basically going to be a 15 megapixel increase from the cameras that are currently available on the market. Having additional megapixels will be great, but what I would really love to see, and this is just me speaking pure conjecture at this point, what I would love to see Canon do is release a higher megapixel version of the EOS R5 that doesn't have the same video specs. I mean, you could just take video out of it entirely as far as I care. Make a high resolution camera that could rival medium format cameras from companies like Fuji, something in the 75 megapixel to 100 megapixel range. That would be fantastic because then you could have a dedicated photography camera using those new RF lenses, and then you could maybe pick up an R6 for recording video. All right, so next I'm going to share with you some initial thoughts about Image.Canon, which is a really interesting new cloud-based file transfer service recently launched by Canon. It's 100% free. You can use it if you have a PowerShot, if you have a mirrorless camera, a DSLR, whatever you have. There's something like 44 different camera models supported by the service. And basically what it does is that it almost functions as like a shelf of sorts. It's a way of wirelessly transferring over Wi-Fi the photos and videos from the SD card in your camera onto the shelf, and then once they're there in the cloud with Canon, they can then be moved on to their final destination. It's not long-term storage. The files only stay on that shelf for up to 30 days, and then they're automatically deleted. All right, so how does Image.Canon even work? Well, it works by installing a new web service to your Canon camera, which fortunately can be done without performing a firmware upgrade. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought I was gonna have to upgrade the firmware, but no, you just use the EOS utility, and Canon provides instructions for each individual camera type for you to be updating the web services within the camera. Then once you have the web service set up and you're able to connect over Wi-Fi, then it's just simply a matter of selecting a single image, a range of images, or your entire SD card. And then the camera is able to wirelessly transfer all of that data to your Image.Canon account. So then once you have photos and videos at Image.Canon, you can automatically download them to your desktop using their EOS utility. It installs a new app that runs in the background. I've been using it on my iMac, and you just wirelessly transfer a photo or video to Image.Canon directly from the camera, and then it just automatically downloads to your desktop, and you get a little notification saying that something new came in, like an airdrop kind of a deal. In addition to downloading to your desktop, Image.Canon can also forward that content onto another connected service. Right now, Image.Canon is supporting Google Drive. It's also supporting Flickr if you want to automatically publish your photos and videos there. That's an option. But what's really going to be interesting for Image.Canon is that sometime later this summer, I believe they said it's about June, they're going to add support for Adobe CC. Now, I talked about Adobe CC a couple of weeks ago in a video I made about backing up your RAW photography in the cloud, where your entire Lightroom catalog and all your photos are stored with Adobe, so that then you can access your catalog and your RAW photography anywhere from any device. Well, with this new connection from Image.Canon, what that means is that you could theoretically be out traveling, you could be out shooting, and then you could wirelessly transfer that content to Image.Canon. They would then forward it on to Adobe, so that then, after that transfer is complete, you could open your laptop, open your tablet, whatever it is that you're using, open Lightroom, and open your Lightroom catalog, and all of those photos, all those raw images from your camera will already be in your catalog with previews created and everything. Now, thankfully, you can do the same thing with Lightroom Classic because of that desktop image downloading app that I talked about just a second ago. You can automatically download your photos from Image.Canon, save them to a specific drive, set up Lightroom so that it's watching that drive for new content, and then all of that content could be automatically ingested into Lightroom so that by the time you get back to your desktop, all of your photos are there waiting for you. With Image.Canon, you can actually register more than one camera. I registered my 5D Mark IV, my 6D Mark II, and my Canon M50, and I uploaded content from all three cameras, which exposes a rather interesting thing about the service, and that is the fact that the service does not distinguish content from different cameras. Everything is time-stamped. So if you were to upload photos from 3 different cameras on the same day, all of those images would be collected together in the same folder. So you wouldn't be able to distinguish which one came from which camera unless you were, I don't know, inspecting metadata on them, something to that effect. The service doesn't organize them in any way for you to know. It just basically lumps everything together. To test uploading content to Image.Canon, I used a Canon M50, a 6D Mark II, and a 5D Mark IV. The Canon M50 performed best. I was able to upload video files, I was able to upload JPEGs and RAW files. For some reason with the 5D Mark IV and the 6D Mark II, I don't know if it's because the software is outdated. I was running the latest firmware on both cameras, but neither DSLR would allow me to select a RAW file to wirelessly transfer to Image.Canon. I think this may just be a short-term bug or some kind of limitation, but from a photography perspective, I could only transfer JPEGs from the DSLRs, not RAW files. Ironically, what was really weird was the fact that I could transfer huge video files to Image.Canon wirelessly using both the 6D Mark II and the 5D Mark IV, but I could not transfer RAW files. So hopefully that'll be resolved in the near future. Now, in my opinion, the main Achilles heel of Image.Canon, at least right now, is the camera. And I say that for 2 reasons. One, wireless transfer speed over Wi-Fi off the camera is just inherently slow. It's just a slow process. Even if you have the camera sitting right next to your Wi-Fi router, it's going to take time. The second reason concerns batteries. In order to transfer those files from the camera over Wi-Fi to Image.Canon, you have to use the battery in your Canon camera because, at least with the 3 Canon cameras that I have, it's not possible to externally power those cameras through USB or something like that as you can with other camera brands. You have to use the battery in the camera, which could be a real non-starter, I think, especially for people who are out traveling. I know when I'm out doing landscape photography, keeping all of my batteries charged is of utmost importance. I mean, it's something that you become rather hawkish about, and you're just staying on top of all the time because you want to conserve that power for when you need it. The last thing you want to be doing is to be burning up your batteries, wirelessly transferring content to Image.Canon. So yeah, I'm going to take these barking dogs as a sign that it's probably time for me to wrap this up. So listen, thank you for your time and attention. If you learned something today or if you just enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. It would really help. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you're just into this topic in general, I make product reviews, I do photo processing tutorials. My main thing is landscape photography. If you've never seen a video on my channel before, I make videos about that. Once I'm able to be out in the world, actually, shooting, hopefully that day will be coming again pretty soon. So if all of that is of interest to you and you want to keep in touch, please remember to click or tap subscribe down below. It also helps in the growth of the channel. So, hey, that's it for me. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of this day, and I will see you next time.